For so much of my life, I thought that the running and the gym, the stuff that I was really good at and did a ton of, would keep me around longer. But as you get older, it's actually the inverse. You realize this. It's the stuff that you ignore and that you're the weakest at that's going to get you first.
So fast forward a little bit, Eternal launches February 24. Where did the idea come from? And just for a disclaimer, Eternal is sponsoring this podcast, and I am doing some consulting work for Eternal because I believe in the mission, I believe in the team, and I love what the team is doing. And it's a fun sandbox to go get my hands dirty in again in a space that I know very well.
Yeah, thank you as a former CEO of a journalism company, ethics, very important. You are biased, I'm biased, but when I left The Athletic, which was way harder than I thought it would be. I have two small children that I mentioned up front, and anyone with kids knows that it doesn't matter really what you say to your kids, they don't listen. It's what you do, and they mimic and watch you, and they become, versions of your worst self and your best self. And I think like one of the core values for me and my family is combining hard work with passion. And I think like ever since Strava, that was 15 years ago, it's just, I'm never going to work in an environment where I'm not unbelievably passionate about what I'm doing. And the mission has to be impactful. It has to be meaningful to the world, help others in some way. So I went on this little personal journey of what do I want to work on? And I mentioned identity earlier. I identify as an athlete, whether that's some days that's a runner, some days that's a gym rat. So I did High Rocks recently. So much fun. Talk about beating up your body. That was amazing. And so whatever it is, I'm down, right? And I want to be that kind of person, dad, friend that's like, hey, I want to do X, let's do it. And so I remember this moment, one of the tougher moments of my career at The Athletic. My son was just born in March of 2019. And we were launching the UK operations, and I had been traveling back and forth to London every other week. And my son was 3-4 months old. And I didn't know what time it was, just so beat down. And we launched this week 6 years ago in August. And I collapsed on the floor. And they have pictures of me on the floor in the little scrubby office in London. It smelled terribly. And I just remember being on this terrible couch. And then I moved to the floor because the couch had coils going into my back. And I just thought it was jet lag, exhaustion. I don't know. I got home and I got on the Peloton and just spun the legs out a little bit, and I couldn't get off the floor again. So I went to the doctor, and he immediately sent me to the emergency room. My liver enzymes were insane. He was like, do you have hepatitis? So who knows what it was, but I was laying on this table for an ultrasound of my liver. I'm so emotional all the time because I'm just so tired. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is the moment they tell me that it's over and I'm going to have to film videos to tell my son Gabriel how much I love him and all that. And they tell me I'm fine. Or the woman says, your results were unremarkable.
What a great word in medical jargon.
I know. And I'm like, that's a good thing or a bad thing? And they're like, that's a good thing. That moment was rough because I had been working so hard. I'd gained a lot of weight. I'd been traveling, eating, drinking, whatever. And I'd always prided myself on being fit and active, but I couldn't be active because I was bouncing back and forth. And ever since that moment, I said, hey, I'm going to be in the driver's seat of my own health. And every person has a moment in life where they figure that out. And mine was at 39. It wasn't that bad. I was fine. A month later, I was back to myself. And that was my moment where I started binging Peter Attia, Huberman, Rhonda Patrick, you name it, Andy Galpin. I couldn't get enough of these podcasts. And I was just obsessed with this world. And they've done such an incredible job. And shout out to them for taking an industry and putting it on their backs and saying, hey, we're going to bring it to more people by talking about it in a way that makes sense. Not easy, right? And make it inspirational. And I think I got hooked and I said, I'm going to get involved and I'm going to create a company and it's going to help folks navigate this. And I didn't know exactly what I would do, but I raised some money and started talking to folks. And I knew right off the bat that I wanted to work with endurance athletes again, because we're a weird bunch. We're more likely to be undernourished than overnourished. We're more likely to work out too much than not enough. We are demented. And like our moods are dictated by our physical activity, whereas like most of the population has like struggles to get off the couch, right? You have to convince us on a Friday night. There has to be a good reason to have alcohol. What is wrong with this?
I went to a concert last night and I was like, I don't really want to drink because I want to feel good tomorrow. Like I've got stuff to do. I'm at like a freaking party.
Right. We're different is what I'm saying. Some good, some bad, but you know, you have to find your own way here. So I said, like, I'm going to work with these people because I'm weird like them. And I want to work on something that I understand. And like I said earlier, we demand so much of our body, yet, you know, we beat it up, yet we have a better sense of like the ins and outs of our fantasy football team or
our
cars than our own human body. It's wild. And there's some great companies out there doing amazing things in the preventative health space. And, you know, I don't take the competition lightly, but when you are building for such a specific type of person, it feels like we can't lose. If you hire great people, you work with a very specific audience who you know really well, and you start to build for them. And we're figuring it out. We're not just there yet. You don't just like on day one have it, right? What I believe is, and I'm inherently a lonely person, and that's like a flaw. And even though I've got so many friends, so many family members, I've got a great family that loves me, I'm never actually alone, but yet I'm a lonely person, lonely soul. And I think about death way too much and my journey there and all of our journeys there. And I think a lot of people are like this. And what if there was a company that would be there with you for this journey? And at the best of times, we want to make you faster. We want to make you stronger. We want to make you fitter, whatever it is. In the best of times, we're going to do that for you. And then inevitably, you know, time is undefeated and our bodies are incredibly complicated and entropic, and like things get messy, and we want to be there for you when stuff goes wrong. Whether it be a calf injury, something more serious, something you didn't know that was already there, something that we can get 20 years ahead of if we focus. And like I'm naturally a strategic person versus tactics. And I listened to these podcasts and I would look at my notepad after an episode and I'd have 2 pages of notes of tactics.
Where do you begin?
And what do I do? And the answer, if you talk to professionals, is I don't know. What's important to you? There's so much that goes into what you should do that is so specific to you, your goals, where you're at, your age, your gender, all these things. And I became so disillusioned after a couple years of this, of the like hacks and the protocols, that people are obsessing over the little things, and they're ignoring their diet, their sleep, their baseline physical activity. I love my favorite like little subculture on like Twitter and Instagram is like the Alan Cousins and the Steve Magnuses, like just like run slow, do the work. Like you're not going to be elite if you're running 5 hours a week. Sorry. Somebody needs to tell you this.
Jason Fitzgerald broke the internet a few months ago by saying that you will not perform optimally in your marathon if you're running less than 35 miles a week, even only running 35 miles a week. You have to do the work.
And if you want elite outcomes, and let's talk about an elite outcome related to Eternal, is living hard until 85. You know, you talk about the man you picked up off the ground, right? And living hard until 85, whatever that means. You know, they talk about health span. I love, like, we talk about athletic span. Like, I want to run. I want the period from which I stop running till I die to be short. And I want to keep running forever. So let's figure it out.
My neighbor is 81 and rides his bike every day. And I only know that he's 81 because we were talking about leasing versus buying an EV. And I was like, oh, you should consider leasing because the technology will be so much better in 2 years. And he's like, I should consider leasing because I'm 81 and I don't know where I'll be in 2 years.
I mean, I come from a newspaper company where, you know, I think the biggest source of churn for the physical paper of the New York Times, I don't know, this is not inside information. I have no idea, but it totally could be death. Because people don't give that paper up until they die. Yeah. And that is, you know, Eternal's really here to support athletes as they age. And like, I love this idea of blurring performance, health, aging, wellness, supplementation, nutrition, all of it, when it blurs together, that's to me what personalization is. It's not AI. It's blurring the things that matter to a specific person on earth. And a runner has such unique demands, so much more physical therapy demands than the average person at a younger age, right? Because you talk about 35 miles a week. When you start running marathons, ultra marathons, you're almost inflecting on that J curve, right? And who's got your back? No one. Because I know one person who doesn't have your back, yourself. And it's why people hire great coaches, right? Because you are generally the worst person to dictate your own strategy because you just push yourself in all the wrong areas. And, one of the key things that I would love to, leave folks listening with is, something I talk about all the time at Eternal. It's like pretty profound for me as I age. You're still young, but I'm still young too.
I was going to say.
Yeah. But we all come to this conclusion at some point. For so much of my life, I thought that the running and the gym, the stuff that I was really good at and did a ton of would keep me around longer. But as you get older, it's actually the inverse. You realize this. It's the stuff that you ignore and that you're the weakest at that's going to get you first. What we're here to do, and you folks should find people to help them regardless of what product they use, is find those blind spots, find those weaknesses. If I don't work on my right hip, I'm going to have hip replacement surgery in my 50s or 60s. And I don't know what I'm going to be like after that. My wife's going to hate me. And so investing in your weaknesses is so valuable as you get older. And the younger you do that, the more likely you are to have fewer weaknesses. That to me is the mission of Eternal. Accompany folks as they age, find their blind spots, be their cheerleader when they need it, be their support system, be the point of view that's real. And we're not here to placate you. If your hip's bad, we're going to tell you. If you're not running enough, your coach should tell you. You're not going to have an elite outcome, 5 hours a week. So what do you want? Let's prioritize the time you are willing to give on the things that matter. And so that's Eternal. We're 3 or 4 months old now to the public, having an absolute blast. We have locations in San Francisco and New York, but hopefully expanding real soon.
Investing in your weaknesses. I love that. I just wrote that down because we are also biased to invest in our strengths, right? Like, let's do more of the things that make us feel good and that we're good at. And you mentioned your weak glutes and hips, and I'm like, my left glute and my left hip could use some investing in that weakness for sure.
I like this sort of morbid point of view, which is that the Grim Reaper doesn't care. Coming for you. Right? And your job is to protect yourself. And when I took on that approach, it's helped me say this is a fortification battle, not an ego battle of, I can run a sub 5-minute mile.